So for my name is Lily Hilderfield, and for my off-list film assignment, I chose Hulk to review. So in this, I kind of picked two themes that I saw and followed those to make connections to other novels and films that we've seen, um, and use those themes to kind of explain a lot about the movie. And the two themes that I picked are emotion and parental expectations. So, what I say about emotions here is that Bruce Banner had to focus on his emotions, and we see that heavily in the film. If he got angry, he would transform into Hulk. Again, I will go in more in depth about this and give you some examples. So, with parental expectations, Brian Banner had a lot of expectations for his son. He knew he was a monster from the beginning and wanted Bruce to use his powers for the worse. So, the emotions that we see, I broke it down and used three examples from the movie. So, the first one is the first change, where Brian is Bruce's father and has taken a custodial position at the lab that Bruce works at. So after Bruce is blasted with the gamma rays, Bruce is in the hospital lab, and his father comes to visit him and reveals his true identity. Bruce does not believe him, but this man, Brian, will not let Bruce call for the nurses or talk to Betty, and it's making Bruce incredibly angry, and he just gets angrier and angrier, and then he transforms into Hulk and escapes the lab. So I don't believe that he had made the connection between his emotion and Hulk just yet, but I do feel like he does in between the first time we see Hulk and the second. So then Talbot comes to visit Talbot comes to visit Bruce, to question him, I'm assuming. So Bruce changes into Hulk when he learns of his father's plans to hurt Betty, and Talbot visits him. So he figures out that his dad is going to try and kill Betty. So he's trying to leave to go help protect Betty and save Betty. And then he is greeted by Talbot at his home, and they get into a physical altercation. And this is when Bruce says, "You won't like me when I'm angry," which is a very common kind of catchphrase for the Hulk. So in this physical altercation, Bruce ends up hurting Talbot and transforms into the Hulk and goes to save Betty. So the third time we see that, or we see kind of this control of emotion or tapping into the emotion, is after Bruce saves Betty from her father's attack. Betty is scared of the Hulk, of Bruce, and so she does the most sensible thing she can think of and calls her father, who is commander at an army base, and they come to pick up Bruce. So this army base is holding Bruce. Betty and Bruce are making contact, or they're talking, they spend the day together, and then Talbot actually kind of takes control of the study of Hulk out from under Betty's father. So when this happens, he cuts off all contact, and Talbot goes in to Bruce's room and tries to rile him up and get the Hulk to come out. He's shocking him. He's saying that Betty has abandoned him, has broken up with him, all of these things just to anger him, to get Hulk to come out so he can take samples from him. And this does not work. Bruce is able to control his emotion consciously. He's making a conscious effort to not let Hulk come out. So what Talbot does is he gets his team to come and take Bruce, and they make him unconscious and try to get Hulk to come out like that. But that is the first time we really see him be able to control when Hulk comes out and suppress his emotions. So, parental expectations. There's a large emphasis on parental expectations for both Betty and Bruce. There are several conversations that Betty and her father have about kind of what he expects from her. They have a very complicated relationship. It seems as though she was mad that he was hard and cold man and he was gone all the time. He's a very stereotypical military man. That's how he's presented in the movie. And she actually tells Bruce about a dream she has where she's eating lunch with her father, and then all of a sudden he's just gone. And this is kind of their relationship manifested in the dream, where it feels like at some point he's just kind of abandoned her, emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, when he just leaves to go to work. So, Bruce and Brian also almost never had a relationship. When Bruce was about, I want to say 3 to 4, that's what it seemed like in the film. However, it doesn't really give a specific date that I remember, or a specific age that I remember. Brian kills Bruce's mother. He stabs her. And so the army or the military police come and get Brian and take him to jail. There's not really an explanation of what happens in between Brian being arrested and Brian kind of revealing himself as the custodian. There's not a lot of explanation with that in the film. But what we do know is that Brian had high expectations for his monster, as he calls him. When they are together at the end of the movie, he says, "I didn't come here to see you," talking to Bruce, the physical person. He came here to see his monster, his other son, his actual son, which would be Hulk in this case. So he had high expectations for Hulk in that way. And I feel like Brian is sort of this master manipulator. So we don't really know when he says at the end of the movie that he just wanted to harness all of Hulk's powers. We don't know if that's the case or if he really just wanted Hulk to kind of be on his side and be evil. Or I saw it that way. I couldn't really tell exactly what he wanted, if he was, trying to convince Hulk to join him, which is what it seemed like at first. And then when he realized that he couldn't get Hulk to be, quote unquote evil, he decides, oh, well, if you're not going to be on my side, then I'm just going to take all your powers. So he was upset that Hulk was not going to live up to this expectation that he had set for him. So how does this connect to the other films and novels that we have seen and read? So the emotion side of it, I decided to connect that to Brokeback Mountain. I think that you could really connect this to almost any movie and film or film and novel that we've watched or read. But I just chose Brokeback Mountain because there was a lot of emphasis on controlling emotion. So Jack and Ennis were very powerful in their love, I guess you could say. Or their love was very, very powerful. So, they really cared for each other. But Ennis wasn't ready to fully admit that to himself and to other people. So they had to really control themselves when it came to showing affection or, talking about a relationship. They had to learn to not let their emotions get the best of them in the same way that Bruce did. Obviously, his wasn't necessarily love, his was anger, but Bruce knew what happened when he got angry, so he tried to control that emotion in the same way that Jack and Ennis did. So, parental expectations are seen in almost every film we've watched, much like emotion. We can see them heavily in Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, which is the first movie we watched. There is this constant fight between tradition and modern expectations. So the father in Eat, Drink, Man, Woman wants his daughters to be traditional, and he's fighting his daughters, and every character pretty much in the movie is fighting the daughters for them to be traditional, for them to, do things like get married and all of these other things. So, but the daughters are more on the modern side. I can't speak specifically for the I can't speak specifically for the culture that they are in, or that this movie takes place in, but I know in a lot of cultures, Eastern cultures, it is very unheard of for a daughter to move out without being married, to move out of the parents' house without being married. So, and one of the daughters was trying to move out of the house and move into an apartment, and saved up for this apartment that's being built. And she's just really excited, and the father is upset, and she's scared to tell the father. The whole movie, she's scared to tell the father because she knows that that's not the traditional thing, and she wants to be, she wants to appease her father, but she also wants to be her own person. So there's this constant parental expectation struggle in that movie. But what are the differences? So this movie accomplishes many of what the other movies did. However, or throughout the duration of the course. However, I think what this makes this movie stand out is the modern aspect of it. It is one of the newer movies that we watched, and I found myself really enjoying the newer movies. I think my favorite movie that I had watched in this whole course, or the two that I really enjoyed, were The Life of Pi and Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. Just because I feel like they were newer. They were, it doesn't have a lot to do with the quality, but they were also better quality, and they were just more like the movies that I'm interested in. Also, I feel like superheroes are really, really big right now with Marvel. So obviously I think Hulk was very interesting. Also, I liked how well Ang Lee stayed true to the original comic. One thing that I love about comics is how diverse they are from traditional reading. A lot of what we have read this semester has been a very traditional book, but I do like incorporating comics into classwork. That is something that I think is so great when it comes to differentiating learning, because it incorporates the visual, it incorporates the kinesthetic, because you can make comics. Like, there are just so many options to do with comics. I love comics, and I also love how Ang Lee stayed so true to it, even down to like the clips. Like when you're watching the Hulk, you can see like the split screen, like you're reading a comic book. It was so interesting and so awesome that Ang Lee was able to do that. So that's one thing that I think makes it so different, is because the original work is a comic, and that movie almost felt like a comic that I was seeing on screen. It kept me very interested, along with the fact that I like the storyline. But I do think that this could be a great incorporation into our already assigned works, because it was so different from everything that we had read, but also kind of conveyed the same themes, and really helped you see what Ang Lee is about.